Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Unified Super Bantamweight Champion Ellie Scotney has once again expressed her interest, her desire to face Yi Merado, the only other champion at this weight at this time, as a result of Erica Cruz being stripped of her WBA title for testing positive for several banned substances, which we talked about. Ellie's calling for Yi Merado. She's calling for the Yi Merado fight, saying, right, we're the only two champions at 122, and you've stated you want to unify. Let's get this signed off.
How does this fight go?
Ellie wins. Ellie wins a points decision. That's how I see it.
We've already talked about what needs to happen to make the fight and where it might go down.
Now, as far as the fight itself, how it might look, play out, and the outcome, I think Ellie Scotney wins because Ellie's punches are noticeably shorter and sharper than Yi Merado. That even though Yi Merado is vastly more experienced as a fighter and she's reigned a lot longer as a champion, Ellie is more talented. Mid-range to inside, in and out on her toes is how and where Ellie Scotney wins this fight. She's not going to hang back and stay on the outside of Yi Merado. In this fight,
she'll show some spite.
I think it would be Yi Merado hanging back and moving lateral, trying to use the ring to create distance as Ellie closes it to get mid-range to inside and land very short punches. Ellie Scotney's punches are shorter and sharper than Yi Mercado's. Yi swings a lot wider.
Ellie's hooks in the pocket are a lot tighter.
And she shows more variety than Yi Merado does. That's saying she shows a good blend of body shots and head punches, hooks, uppercuts up the middle.
She's faster.
Faster on her feet, with faster hands, but more subtleties within striking distance. Those subtleties would make all the difference.
Yi has a lot more fights than Ellie Scotney. As a professional and a champion, she is a lot more experienced.
But in a short amount of time and a small amount of fights, Ellie Scotney has shown her mettle, tested it, with the kind of fighters that an up-and-comer doesn't normally fight
so soon.
The names that stand out: Melis Gengloff, former EBU champion; Mary Romero, former IBF champion; Jorgelina Guanini, IBF champion; Shernika Johnson, and WBO champion Sigolene Lafarve. That in just 9 fights, Ellie has shown us what kind of fighter she is and what she's made of, and how adaptable, malleable she can be against a variety of fighters with a variety of different base styles and characteristics, all more experienced than she was going in.
What do you see?
I think the fight looks and plays out like the Mary Romero fight, to where it's Ellie Scotney coming forward, dominating the pocket, backing up Yi Merado, who tries to fight Ellie Scotney off, but because she swings a lot wider than Ellie
will see the punches coming, slip the straight punches, and duck under the sweeping hooks.
Weave the looping right hand.
Because Yi swings a lot wider than Ellie Scotney does.
Defensively, Ellie is better, and offensively, she's more accurate. Her hooks are tighter, her punches are shorter, and more defensible.
You don't think you're underestimating Yi again?
Not with Ellie. What is consistent with Ellie Scotney is she often comes up against fighters that have more fights, more rounds in the bank, and more experience than she does. And not only does she beat them, but she makes it look easy, where most other fighters struggle with those same fighters. She beats them and makes it look relatively easy, relatively simple. So I would favor Ellie Scotney heavily in a Mercado fight. It's up to Matchroom to make it.
To my knowledge, Yi Merado is not under orders to satisfy any mandatory challengers. I don't think Ellie Scotney is either.
But because Ellie is a unified champion with 2 alphabet titles, time is of the essence, because it won't be long before one or both of those alphabet organizations call for mandatories.
They gotta move fast.
Matchroom has to make a play to do the fight.
It's gonna cost them.
Likely more than what it costed them to convince Yi to defend her title against Ramla. It's gonna cost even more to try to get her to unify with Ellie.
But you have to pay to play. That's the way it is.
We'll see if they make it happen. Men's junior middleweight news is Riel Madrimov is honored for Terrence Crawford to go from idol to rival.
Well, grab my tits and call me Susie.
Indio, California, not far from the very gym where Terrence Crawford announced his presence as a force who would dominate 3 divisions over the next decade, is Riel Madrimov prepares to deal Crawford his first defeat. Everything has a beginning and an end, said Joel Diaz, Madrimov's veteran trainer, who welcomed Crawford into his gym long ago for sparring sessions to help the now Hall of Fame two-division champion Timothy Bradley.
1 month removed from the August 3rd Los Angeles main event of a stacked card constructed by Saudi Arabia's Turkey Al-Sheikh.
Madrimov, 29, spoke the boxing scene following another intense training session in the 105-degree heat of the Coachella Valley.
Coachella, the site of that disgusting music festival and all the disgusting people that attended.
He's a great fighter all around. He has every tool, Madrimov said of Crawford, through an interpreter. But I feel this is my division. I fought at a higher weight class in the amateurs, 165, compiling 330 bouts, and I've since turned up pro at 154. Every fight has been big. I had 6 final eliminators. What everyone's saying about me lacking experience, my 11 fights in the pros is not the same as everyone else. This is my division. He's moving up. I know he has all the skills, but it's my division and my time.
You know, that's why I like this fight. Because in spite of his Riel not having as many fights or as many rounds in the bank as Terence, he is bigger and he is younger and he's well schooled.
At 36, Crawford is coming off his most impressive triumph yet, but that was a year ago. A 9th-round TKO of then unbeaten 3-belt welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. that was preceded by 3 other knockdowns. That's the Crawford that World Boxing Association junior middleweight champion Madrimov is preparing for in India, savoring the opportunity to fulfill a destiny born from a rugged childhood in Uzbekistan. In a 2019 interview I conducted with Madrimov for The Athletic, the fighter said, "I remember it pretty clear because I was crying from the cold. That was when I decided to do something with my life for my family. I was going to do whatever it takes. I just wanted a warm place to stay. I didn't know what the way out was, but I was going to push toward whatever I did with my life to find a way out." Madrimov became a world champion on March 8th in front of Al-Sheikh in Saudi Arabia.
You know, we often hear about the hard luck stories of fighters in the West, American fighters and their hardships, not realizing these foreigners actually have it pretty hard too, sometimes harder than the Americans.
Madrimov became a world champion March 8th in front of Al-Sheikh in Saudi Arabia, scoring a 5th-round TKO of Magomed Kurbanov, then unbeaten, and putting things in motion for the bout against Crawford, who has stood as undisputed champion at both welterweight and junior welterweight. Their bout tops Al-Sheikh's debut Riyadh season promoted in the United States card, which includes 140-pound champion Isaac Cruz,
former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz, rising heavyweight contender Jared Anderson,
unbeaten David Morrell in his 175-pound debut, and Olympic gold medalist Andy Cruz of Cuba.
You stop fucking around, it's Cuba.
I'm very excited, very happy, and pleased about the way things are playing out, Madrimov said. It's always been my dream to fight such a big pound-for-pound name. For me, he's number 1 in the world. It's a big honor, a great opportunity to change my life, my family's life. In the history of boxing, nothing like this card has ever been done.
He seems to admire Terence Crawford.
There is virtue in admiration of your opponent because you know to take them seriously. You know who you're training for, who you're fighting.
You fucking wank.
The immense stage will allow Madrimov the opportunity to display his gifts fully. He, too, has two-handed power. He's younger, the naturally bigger man, and has yearned for this day as Crawford arrives in his 19th consecutive title fight. We know Crawford is great, Diaz said. He has great boxing ability. He's patient, great reflexes. But time goes by. He's 36. He doesn't fight too often. I just have a good feeling Riel can pull it off. I know who we're facing. I followed Terence Crawford's career for years, and it will be an honor sharing the ring with him. If we come out with that win, it's a big one.
And this is intriguing.
I've seen some boo-birds and naysayers try to poo-poo on the fight on the premise that Riel only has 11 professional fights. But need I remind you that he is bigger, he is younger, he comes from a deep amateur background, and Terence is 36, going on 37, having not fought in a year and climbing to a new weight.
There are easier fights to take for Terence in what will be his junior middleweight debut, but he's facing this guy straight away.
It's not something I look at because he's an athlete. He's not looked at as a guy who's smoking, drinking, partying, Madrimov said. I know for sure, once I beat him, people will say he turned old. But you're only as good as your last fight, and he showed the best fight of his career in his last performance. So I'm expecting the best Terrence Crawford, who can possibly step in the ring, comfortable and confident. I feel like we're both in our best mode, and the best man in the ring will win. I think he knows our mentality, and he knows there's no way he can mess with me mentally, Madrimov said. We as Uzbeks were raised in a certain way. I don't trash talk. I don't disrespect anyone. I only let my fists do the talking in the ring. I'm not that person, and Terence knows that.
Terence isn't a big trash talker either. He's not much of a talker at all.
A breath of fresh air for me at a time when so many other American fighters think they have to make a spectacle of themselves.
Loud, talkative, boisterous.
Terence Crawford isn't. He's a very smart person. He knows he won't waste his energy trying to get under my skin because he knows I'm not going to respond to it. We've actually become friends. We've spent a lot of time together filming all the promos. He is a respectful, good guy and one of my favorite fighters because he's a good, humble champion. The best, in my opinion. That's the best for me. Train until your idols become your rivals. That's where we are now. Of course, Madrimov is fully aware of how the masses expect this movie to end August 3rd. Al-Sheikh wants to stage the Alvarez versus Crawford bout, and the only way that materializes is with Crawford defeating Madrimov. The business of boxing needs to do that. They can plan ahead however they want. Diaz said, "We're not thinking about their plans. We're thinking about ours. I don't care what their plans are. Whatever plan they have, it might not happen." When people are talking loud about things in the future, those things are in the future, Madrimov said. It's the present time right now, and we have a fight scheduled. There was also a lot of talk about who Canelo would fight once he beat Bivol. When I was here training with Bivol every single day, getting him ready, we knew how the Canelo fight was going to happen. People, the whole world, were talking about mega fights and who they'd fight next. But it was confusing a little bit because we knew the truth. My goal is this fight, and then we'll see where I qualify after this fight.
Madrimov is not to be trifled with, in spite of what a few naysayers might be saying.
And let's just be fucking honest. Anybody poo-pooing on this fight is likely somebody that's angry Terrence Crawford beat Errol Spence, because that's what I see.
Sore losers.
You think I waited up until this fight was announced to say that Riel is a good fighter? I said that beforehand, that he's a credible and apparent threat to Tim Tszyu, to Sebastian Fundora, Virgil Ortiz, and anybody else at this weight.
On the balls of his feet, on his toes, bouncing in and out of striking distance, power in both hands, chin tucked.
Staying with you, not hanging back, staying close enough that he can step in and land some punches.
Still far enough out that he can step out and avoid yours.
Oh, I do think that Terence beats him. I think he might stop him, but I wouldn't be surprised if beforehand Terence does look a little human. Because it's been a while since he fought, he's not getting any younger, and he's at a new weight. That there were easier fights to take for his junior middleweight debut than this one.
I'm supposed to fight Madrimov. I'm the #1 contender for the WBA. You know, once a boxer becomes a champion, they have to fight the #1 guy. It becomes the mandatory. I'm the mandatory. If they're gonna skip over me, that's gonna be up. You know, is it a good fight? Yeah, but I'm supposed to be the one fighting Madrimov. When I heard that news, I was like, what the like? That's supposed to be me. You know, a lot of fans say, oh, how come we don't fight this guy or whatever, or well, I'm trying to fight the best, but I mean, you see that it's not up to it's not under my control. Like if it was under my control, I would have fought the world champions already at 140. I would have fought him at 147. You know, it kind of it feels up. You know, I feel like I'm just kind of on the sideline at this point. People are getting mad at me for not fighting the best. Well, like I'm not getting the opportunity.
Struggle a little bit with these comments from Virgil, that he hasn't been afforded the opportunity to fight for a title at 147 when I vaguely recall the president of the WBO himself, Paco Veracel, saying that Virgil's team, was offered the Crawford fight not once, but twice, and it was rejected both times. At that time, Virgil was ranked somewhere in the top 5 of the WBO, behind Jaron Boots Ennis, who we all know went the IBF route. So if Virgil stays the course, he gets the Crawford fight. He instead elected to fight for the WBA title, rather a WBA regular title, instead.
Castanionis.
His statements require reconciliation because he's saying he was never given that chance. The WBO's president said otherwise. And what he's saying about the Madrimov fight, that it's supposed to be him fighting Riel Madrimov, that he's the mandatory, I don't see how, since Virgil Ortiz has never actually made 154 pounds. The two fights that he had earlier this year, both of them were fought above 154 pounds. The Frederick Lawson fight, the Thomas Dulorme fight, and none of those fights were final eliminators.
Maybe he is ranked at number 1 via the WBA, but he hasn't been officially installed as the mandatory.
The fight that he's about to have with Sergey Bohachuk via the WBC. Now that qualifies that if he beats Sergey, and I think he's going to, he will become interim champion and in effect be in line for the winner of Fundora versus Spence. If that even happens.
You don't think it will?
Listen, look, those are less than ideal circumstances for Errol Spence Jr. to challenge Sebastian Fundora, and given the nature of the PBC's deal with Amazon, the financial constraints, I just don't know. In any event, the fight that Virgil is about to have would line him up for either the winner of that fight, whoever it is, or Sebastian Fundora, in the event that it doesn't happen, because he is WBC champion.
So, I mean, Virgil's on his way. He's on the right track.
If he takes care of business with Sergey, he may yet get the opportunity to not only fight for a full title, but against a familiar face, a familiar name.
But the whole bit about him not being given an opportunity?
Paco Vericel says otherwise. You would have to take that up with him. And near as I can tell, Golden Boy Promotions was not committed to putting Virgil Ortiz in the ring with Terrence Crawford. That's what the facts show.
That if it was about fighting for a title, you could have fought for a title.
They took you in the direction of the WBA title instead of Crawford's WBO. So is it really that he was deprived of an opportunity? Or was there an opportunity, they just didn't want it?
Everybody in boxing speaks in code.
I like Virgil Ortiz. I think he has a bright future, and he's a talented young man, a pleasure to watch, and he's made for television. But I ain't gonna pour sugar on shit.
Not gonna act like I don't know any better.